Megumi Shimizu walks around Sotoba village, brooding over how much she wishes she could live in the city and how much she despises the town. Otoru Satu and Yiko Utsuka, the locals, are teasing her and engaging in gossip. Megumi thinks that the only things that truly matter to her are Natsuno Yuuki Koide and the large home on the hill. She occasionally hides in the shrubbery outside his home in an attempt to get a good look at him through the window. She becomes sooty when a tractor passes her on the road. Meanwhile, the bodies of Hidemasa and Miko Murasako have been discovered in the Yamari region. Seishin Moroi, a junior monk, is questioned by police officer Takami. He was in Upper Sotoba that morning to administer Shuji Gotoda's last rites. They believed him to have had a summer cold. He later visited Shuji's relatives in Yamari, where he discovered Shuji's aunt and uncle had passed away. Jigoro Okawa was also dead when he hurried next door to borrow the phone. Miko's body somehow remains fresh, whereas the other two have been severely decomposing for several days. Dr. Toshio Ozaki talks with Seishin about the fatalities. Kaori Tanaka, Megumi, and her brother Akira walk to school together. Kaori is going to summer school for practice, and Megumi needs to go. Megumi leaves after being irritated with their backwoods mannerisms. At the bus station, she runs into Natsuno, but he doesn't give a damn. Though she can't bring herself to give it to him or mail it, she wrote a summer card for him. A moving company van arrives in the dead of night at the roadside restaurant, Chigusa. Tatsumi is driving and needs directions to the Kanamasa area of Sotoba. Shopkeeper Kanami Yano gives them directions, with her mother T looking in from the window. While villagers gossip about the newcomers, Megumi heads up the road to go to the mansion. Kaori was out walking her dog Love, and she told Megumi about the new people. She is greeted at the gate by Seishiru. Later, Kaori's mother, Sachiko, gets a phone call asking about Megumi, who has not made it home. Kaori says that Megumi was going to Kanmasa. Word spreads that Megumi is missing, and liquor store owner Tomio Ukawa organizes a search party, bringing his son Atsushi. Teichi Mutu and Natsuno's father, Yuuki, join the search. Officer Takami goes to Kanmasa to inquire about Megumi. Tatsumi says that they haven't seen her and joins the search. The search for Megumi goes on through the night. They discover her lying catatonic in the woods. Tasho examines Megumi and only finds her to be suffering from anemia, with insect bites being her only injury. Kaori is walking Love and sees the lady from Kanmasa, Chizuru, talking to Yasayuki from the lumber mill. Meanwhile, Dr. Ozaki gets a phone call. Megumi is dead. When Tasho discovers that Megumi has passed away from anemia, he is horrified and asks her parents for permission to have an autopsy done on her. However, her father declines. As Seishin leaves for Megumi's burial, he wonders how the community is surrounded by death, symbolized by the fir trees that are chopped down and turned into grave markers. Natsuno encounters Ozaki Clinic nurse Ritsuko Kunairo on the way to Megumi's funeral. Toru, her dog, is strolling with her. The two young individuals became the subject of talk in the community. The greeting card that Megumi wrote but was unable to deliver to Natsuno was discovered by Kaori at Megumi's residence. She starts crying over it. The funeral is led by Seishin. Natsuno rejects Kaori's effort to offer him Megumi's summer greeting card, saying that they weren't very close. In her vision, Kaori is about to tumble into her own grave. She takes Megumi's birthday gift, which she is leaving for Megumi, to the funeral. Megumi died of a rare kind of anemia, according to Dr. Ozaki and his team, although the exact cause of death is still unknown. When Tiyano visits Fuki Gotoda, he discovers that Fuki is dead. This comes after her brother, his wife, and her kid passed away. When the most recent victim refuses to consult a doctor, Tasho begins to get interested in the deaths. At the Yuuki household, Natsuno is in his room after having returned from Megumi's funeral and suddenly feels uncomfortable and closes up his window, like he always did to prevent the late Megumi from watching him. However, it still brings no comfort, as he feels a pair of eyes watching him from outside. Tashio and Seishin meet up with a town councilman and public health officer, Ishida, who reveals that 10 people died from mysterious causes between Sotoba and Mizoba, a neighboring village, in an unusually short period of time. The trio reviews the 10 August deaths. Tashio has reason to believe an epidemic is spreading, So he, Seishin, and Ishida agree to investigate further without panicking the populace. Now Yasumori came to the clinic with an early symptom of fatigue. Toshio swears to find out the cause of this and save his village. Natsuno continues to obsess over Megumi, imagining that she is watching from the forest. Seishin works on a novel called Shiki, which describes the undead. Natsuno goes to school and meets his best friend, Toru Mewtwo, along with Ritsuko. He hitches a ride with them to Mizobe, where they later meet up with a fellow classmate, Masao Murasako, who intensely dislikes Natsuno. Masao goes to the library, where he is startled by the librarian, Yuzuki, who looks stoned. Masao is a strange kid, sometimes making inappropriate comments. He has an estranged relationship with his family. Natsuno remembers how he did not want anything to do with the villagers since he moved here, until he met Toru. Dr. Ozaki still cannot find a source for the anemia-afflicted victims. His childhood friend, Mikiyasu Yasumori, returns with his wife, now, whose condition has worsened. Toshio questions Mikiyasu about whether his workers or clients have been ill, and Mikiyasu tells him that his family met the Kirishiki couple a few nights ago while lighting fireworks for the Bon festival. Toshio knows how sick Nao is but downplays it to Mikiyasu. Seishin meets Sunako Kirishiki, who claims to be a fan of his essays. She notices the scar on his wrist from his suicide attempt. She snaps at him for calling her miss, because she hates being treated like a child. Nao passed away the next day from her illness. Masao arrives at Toru's house to announce her death and discovers Natsuno is staying over. He almost gets into a fight with Natsuno before Toru breaks them up. Toru goes outside to get a soft drink and meets Tatsumi, who is Kirishiki's steward, and invites Tatsumi to come visit him in his house. Tatsumi ominously tells Toru that he definitely will and will bring a friend. Akira is eating watermelon while sitting on the steps with his sister Kaori. She starts crying as he continues talking about the tragic events in the town. Moneyhide Murasako informs Seishin over the phone that Kenji Uda has passed away. On Seishin's list of the deceased, that brings the total to 12. Then, Masaki Teshiro calls to report that Officer Takami has also passed away. Every night when Natsuno goes to sleep, he fears that someone is watching him via his windows. While Ritsuko is eating lunch at the coffee shop, Masaki stops by to inform her that Takami has passed away and that his family has moved abruptly without saying goodbye. Ritsuko recalls that the Shinoda family also relocated when a family member passed away, and ironically, they used the same moving firm and what appears to be Tatsumi's vehicle. Sakaki, an additional officer, had already taken Takami's seat. Toshio receives a call to revive Mikiyasu's son, Suzumu. He discovers that Mikiyasu is exhibiting the early signs of the sickness as well. Over the phone, Toshio informs Seishin that Suzumu, like the other victims, is in fact anemic. Sadly, it is too late to preserve the conditions of the father and son. Seishin wanders into the forest and encounters Sanako going out for a walk. Sanako tells him that she suffers from a disease that makes it too dangerous for her to be exposed to sunlight. Toshio gathers the hospital staff and announces that 19 have died since September 10th, with Mikiyasu being the latest victim. They discuss the possible causes and plan to put up a report for the public health department. Riding the bus back from school, Natsuno hallucinates that Megumi is there with him. He can't sleep because of all these images of Megumi and requests to stay at Toru's place. At night, Natsuno senses Megumi's and Tatsumi's presence. He has a vision of her slithering out from under the bed, baring fangs, and then biting Toru on the neck. Natsuno wakes up after a vision of Megumi attacking Toru in the night. He realizes Toru is uninjured, implying it was all a dream. Seishin conducts interviews with the deceased's relatives and friends while touring the community. He starts with Masaji Shimizu, who runs a neighborhood garden business, to pay tribute to his son Ryuji. Next, he approaches Masaharu Koike to ask about Takatoshi Hirasawa's death. Then it's time to see Moneyhide Murasako. He discovers that a lot of them resigned their employment shortly before their deaths. After that, he visits the booze shop. The owner, Tomio Ukawa, is yelling at everyone. Atsushi, his kid, receives another blow to the face. Ukawa receives a phone call from a coworker, Yasuzu Muramatsu, whose daughter has recently passed away. Yasuzu is shouted at. Natsuno discovers that Toru has not attended school since the day he last saw him. Natsuno goes to Toru's home and is shocked to see Toru pronounced dead by Tashio. He worries that his nightmare was real. His mother then delivers the postcard from Megumi, the one he refused from Kaori. It has tear stains on it. He goes to the window and tears it up. A few days later, Masao gets into a quarrel with his family over his nephew Hiromi, who is sick. He goes to Toru's funeral and finds Natsuno paying his last respects to Toru. Later, he tries to provoke Natsuno into a fight, but is stopped and driven away by Toru's siblings. Masao goes home and sees a man in white entering his family's courtyard, but when he looks around, the man is gone. As Masao enters his house, he is attacked by the man in white, Uzuki, the librarian. Megumi, who has been awakened, picks up the shredded parts of her postcard to Natsuno, feeling disappointed and angry by Natsuno's treatment of her. Natsuno acknowledges that Megumi visited his residence and promises that he will not die that quickly. Tashio confirms Hiromi's death, while Masao, who was attacked earlier, remains immobile and unable to call for aid. Tashio learns that insect bites are a possible source of infection. He loses patience when his newest patient's wife diagnoses and treats cyanosis, despite the gravity of the condition. When Seishin informs Tashio about the strange behavior of the deceased victims, Tashio criticizes his buddy for investigating anything unrelated to the sickness. Sanako visits Seishin at night, and the monk tells her about a terrible sickness spreading in the hamlet, but she remains unconcerned. Masao has died. Natsuno watches a vampire horror movie with Toru's brother and learns about the legend of the Risen. Natsuno discovers Seishin borrowing books on the same subject and visits his temple. However, Miwako, Seishin's mother, informs Natsuno that her son is on business. The village gossips discuss Yashahide Kadu's death. Ikumi Aitu, the local mad lady, screams about how the newcomers to Kainmasa are to blame for the fatalities. Itsuko Gyuda is currently in the clinic with the illness. This time, Dr. Ozaki administers a blood transfusion, which proves extremely beneficial. She felt a lot better on Saturday. Some part-time employees at Ozaki Clinic left due to fear of contracting the illness. When Itsuko doesn't show up for her appointment, Tashio phones and talks to Bungo, her husband, and tells him to bring her in. She is ailing again. Itsuko is dead. Natsuno happens upon Tashio in the street and asks him if he is sure of Megumi's death. Tashio laughs it off when Natsuno thinks that Megumi may have revived and jokes that anyone who did would be a vampire or zombie. When he asks Natsuno how he came up with the thought, the boy leaves. Kaori and her brother Akira spy on the Kainmasa castle as he explains his sighting of a deceased villager heading inside. However, they are unaware of Tatsumi observing them in the woods behind them. Natsuno discovers Kaori and Akira spying in the woods and orders them to leave the area around the mansion. When Akira recounts seeing Yasayuki, the timber business owner who just died, alive and visiting the mansion, Natsuno and the Tanaka siblings suspect something about the individuals there. Natsuno mentions seeing Megumi as well. To be sure, they go to dig up her grave to see if she is there. In the meantime, a recovered Masao is stuck in his casket and struggles to escape. He remembers how he died. The librarian attacked him and drank his blood for many days before he passed, unable to cry for aid. Tatsumi frees him and informs Masao that he is now an Akiyagari, meaning risen, with vampire-like characteristics. He takes Masao to a boarded-up home and teaches him how to survive as an Akiyagari. Tatsumi is revealed to be a Jinru, a type of vampire who can spend the day outside and survive for extended periods of time without sipping human blood. He convinces Masao that it's okay to attack and feed on his fellow human villagers in order to survive. Tokujiro Yasamori brings in his wife, Setsuko, to see Tashio at the Ozaki clinic. Tashio instructs him to allow her to stay at his clinic for supervision, and he promises to protect her. Seishin informs Tashio of Ishida, the councilman, who is now missing, along with the records of deaths in the village. The junior monk is shocked to learn that Tashio believes that vampires are the cause of the deaths so far. Tashio intends to capture the culprits using Setsuko as bait and wants Seishin to help him, and the monk tells him that he will consider it. In the forest cemetery, the Tanaka siblings meet up with Natsuno, prepared to dig up Megumi's grave. Sanako and Seishin talk about the loneliness of being rejected by God. Natsuno, Kaori, and Akira investigate Megumi's grave and discover it empty, confirming their suspicion. Kaori is abruptly snatched and pulled into the forest, but she repels him with the good luck charm she gave Megumi. Natsuno then dispatches the adversary with a shovel. They learn the man had no body heat before being killed, implying he is one of the Shiki. They partially bury him in Megumi's grave, thinking that adults will notice. When the three return to the forest in the morning, they discover that the grave has been covered over and the corpse has disappeared. Natsuno vows to kill off old woman Madohashi, who just died of illness, if she emerges from her tomb. Seishin considers Dr. Ozaki's claim that the dead are rising and assumes Sonako is one of them based on her voice and genetic condition. While Natsuno is still away from home, a young girl, Shizuka Matsuo, wearing a kindergarten uniform and using a bunraku puppet to talk, shows up at his house and asks her parents to let her in, claiming to know Natsuno. Natsuno's father is suspicious of the girl. However, he reluctantly invites her in due to his wife's persuasions. Then, the girl, whose eyes glow ominously, asks to wait in Natsuno's room. Seishin joins Tashio in the clinic at night to protect Setsuko from any potential attackers. Seishin discusses his latest work, The Tale of Cain and Abel. Setsuko's health has stabilized following an uneventful night. The doctor talks about the matter with the clinic workers. After that, Tashio meets his mother and his wife, Kaioyuko, both of them noticing that he's exhausted. The following night, Ritsuko visits the clinic to feed Tashio and Seishin, but discovers the recovered now. Tashio informs Seishin that he intends to dissect the Shiki if they catch one, much to the monk's dismay. Setsuko wakes up and cries out to Nao, interrupting their chat. Tashio and Seishin open the window and see Nao floating outside. As Nao escapes, Tashio warns her that she will never enter his clinic without permission. Setsuko wakes up feeling much better and recalls having dreams about Nao visiting her in the previous days. Meanwhile, Kaioyuko and Tatsumi meet outside the clinic. Just after midnight, the clinic's electricity goes out. While Seishin goes to start the generator, Nao forces Setsuko to leave and meet her outside. Tashio attempts to stop her, but is struck down by Tatsumi. Seishin notices a gathering of Shiki outside, but they are unable to assault him since Shiki must be welcomed inside. Tatsumi informs Tashio that they have been told not to hurt him yet. Setsuko gets swallowed dry by the waiting Nao and the other Shiki. Tashio grieves for Setsuko while blaming himself for failing to save her. As the Shiki leave, Takatoshi remarks that Megumi is not with them. Tatsumi replies that he knows where she went. Azusakoid offers tea to Shizuka, who is waiting in Natsuno's room. However, when Natsuno returns home, she is exited via the window. He contacts Akira and cautions him to make sure his family does not allow outsiders inside the house. Yuuki discovers that Natsuno's room is adorned with all of the talismans that Akira and Kaori purchased for him. He becomes enraged and removes them all. He can't stomach superstitious religious practices. Natsuno spends the day thinking about the Shiki coming after him. He defends himself as best he can with a wrench. Later that night, Tatsumi directs the gathering Shiki to invade the Ozaki clinic to rescue Nao's target, Setsuko. He appears to be utilizing the same hypnosis techniques as they use on the living to induce submission. Shizuka informs Natsuno that she will be slain that night. Megumi complains, but is informed they must remove Natsuno because he is aware of their existence. Megumi wants to murder Natsuno herself. Nao attempts to cheer her up, but Megumi teases her since her family, including Mikiyasu and Suzumu, did not rise and remain dead, leading Nao to cry. The next night, the raid on the Ozaki clinic occurs. Megumi immediately hurries to Natsuno's residence, intending to be the one to kill him. Natsuno hears knocking on his bedroom window. It's Toru, come to kill him. Ashamed, Toru runs off. Megumi encounters Toru, who bursts into tears. Natsuno rushes out of his house to look for Toru. However, he encounters Tatsumi, who introduces himself. Tatsumi tells Natsuno that he's a threat, just like the doctor, and will be eliminated for the safety of their existence. Natsuno brandishes the wrench as Tatsumi invites Megumi out from the bushes to finish the job. Before she can attack him, Toru appears behind Natsuno and bites him, after which the boy collapses. Tokujiro Yasumori learns that Setsuko has passed away. The nurses discuss the course of events. Risuko notes that the doctor's typically impassioned manner has become frigid today. Toda calls to announce his resignation from the clinic. Kairuko tells Tashio's mother that a new medical clinic has opened by the highway, so she rushes to go there. Kairuko has Tatsumi in for a drink. Yuuki, in the coffee shop with Hirasawa and Masaki Teshiro, wonders whether there's an outbreak. Tashio drops in. He was invited to answer questions concerning the fatalities. He refuses to discuss it, simply saying that he will cremate any deceased family members. Ikumi informs her daughter that the residents of Kanmasa are Okiagari, which is a local name for the revived dead. She goes to town to warn everyone, but gets humiliated. Tomio Ukawa and Itsushi chase her from the booze store. Tashio digs up Setsuko's body. He tells Seishin how he plans a series of experiments on her if she rises from the dead. They argue over the ethics of killing Okiagari, who are nevertheless living beings. Seishin tells Sonako that she knows her secret. Today, Ikumi manages to attract a crowd of followers. They confront Tashio, demanding the truth. He denies anything to do with Okiagari, but agrees to check them out at Kanmasa Mansion. At the mansion, Seishiro Kirishiki, Sonako and Tatsumi's purported father, explains why his wife and daughter can't go outside during the daytime. Tashio checks Seishiru's pulse. Mr. Kirishiki has a normal pulse, body temperature, and respiration. That night, Ikumi is tricked into leaving her house so the Shiki can get rid of her. Yoshikazu Tanaka finds it weird that he is the only one who works in the municipal office throughout the day. Kaori and Akira meet up with Natsuno, who shows them the bite marks on his neck and tells them to leave the village, fearing that they will get attacked. But Akira and Kaori refuse. Realizing that they won't listen, Natsuno tells them to stay away from him, saying that the next time they see him, he won't be his own self anymore. Toru visits Natsuno's residence that night but hesitates to assault him. Natsuno confronts him, asking why they can't cohabit, and suggests that Toru leave the hamlet with him. Toru tells him that the hunger is intolerable and that he cannot stand it. Natsuno then starts to stab him, but stops abruptly, realizing he cannot murder his buddy, and offers to let him drink his blood. Toru resists, but because of his insatiable need, he assaults Natsuno. The Shiki live in Yamariri, an isolated rural area in the highlands. Tatsumi instructs Megumi to assault Yoshikazu, Kaori's father. Natsuno's father meets Seishiro Kirishiki, who assures him that there is nothing wrong with the hamlet. Meanwhile, Natsuno's anemia worsens due to Kaori and Akira's frequent visits, during which they place protection charms and seals around Natsuno's room. After removing the seals, Natsuno's father is persuaded that the town is wicked and prohibits Kaori and Akira from visiting Natsuno, claiming that he would care for Natsuno in their absence. After they go, he discards the talismans. Later, Kaori and Akira's father come upon Megumi as she prepares to bite him. Natsuno's father opens a window, tells Natsuno he'll check on him later, and walks away. Toru may be seen outside Natsuno's window, waiting to assault him. Subscribe for next part of this anime. Thank you for watching till the end, and please don't forget to subscribe. See you next time, and peace out.